Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Moore. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today we're going to celebrate the music of Star Wars. John Williams was recommended to George Lucas by Steven Spielberg. Now John Williams, of course, had composed the score to Steven Spielberg's film Jaws. Jaws, which led John Williams to his second Oscar win, was a huge hit thanks in no small part to John Williams' iconic and frightening score. Little did anyone realize what John Williams, or Johnny as he's called, would bring to that galaxy far, far away. In fact, I think it was George Lucas who once said that one of the only things about the original movie that exceeded his expectations was the music of John Williams. In terms of, I believe that he felt that the film was not turning out the way that he had imagined it. He was looking for something better, which, let's be fair, apparently he's the only one. Okay? But he was very pleased with John Williams' score. This was unusual for that time period because science fiction movies, at least of the 70s, didn't generally rely on big, old-fashioned scores. John Williams brought a level of classic Hollywood composition to Star Wars, very much in the vein of old pirate movies or The Adventures of Robin Hood or other big famous scores. Now, John Williams has many, many influences. Whether it's classical composers like Peter Tchaikovsky or whether you're dealing with Eric Korngold, who, by the way, was the composer of The Adventures of Robin Hood, which I covered a couple of weeks ago. I covered that on my podcast. And very much in keeping with very classic styles of composing. Now, interestingly enough, John Williams began his career as a musician as a piano player and jazz band. Now, once in a while, we've gotten to hear the jazz inspiration. And John Williams, when he writes a movie score, uses the piano first to kind of get the idea. And will often play the music for the director on the piano to give them an idea of what it's going to be. Now, John Williams won his third Oscar for composing Star Wars. And the rest is history. So let's get into some of the specifics of each score that he has composed. The score to Star Wars has been ranked by the American Film Institute as the greatest American movie score of all time. Now, when it comes to Star Wars, I'm going to slightly disagree. Because I believe the best score he composed, or to Star Wars, the best Star Wars score is the score to The Empire Strikes Back. But we'll get there in just a minute. Now, looking at the original film, there are many very, very iconic pieces to originate in that movie. Whether it's the main title, the Force theme, Princess Leia's theme, or the great throne room piece at the end of the movie. The thing is, it is difficult to identify the most iconic piece of music from Star Wars because every piece of music is known by everyone. People all over the world can hear that and know it's Star Wars. But let's also not forget the Cantina Band music, which I think is where John Williams is showing off his jazz influences. So, every bit of music is super iconic there. So it is difficult for me to say what is my favorite. Certainly of the original film, I think that the Force theme is wonderful. The main title, of course, is epic and iconic. But actually, I might be so bold as to say my favorite piece from Star Wars is when the Millennium Falcon is getting drawn in by the tractor beam of the Death Star. I think that's brilliant music. Okay. Let us jump to what I think is the best score to Star Wars. Though, it's hard to say best when all of them are so amazing. And that, I think, is The Empire Strikes Back. Now, sometimes it's forgotten. The Imperial March was not introduced until The Empire Strikes Back. Believe it or not. Even though it's probably the most iconic piece of music besides the main title ever written. And I mean ever written, not just in Star Wars, but ever, I think. Or at least that argument could be made. Now, The Empire Strikes Back introduces the Imperial March, introduces Yoda's theme, introduces the piece called Han and Leia. Well, actually, it's called Han Solo and the Princess, I believe. Which is a permutation. At least when I hear it, I think it's a permutation of Princess Leia's theme. So it's Leia's theme, but slightly different. And of course, plays beautifully at the very end of the movie as that the Rebel fleet is moving off into space. So truly remarkable and iconic pieces of music. Yet again, every piece of music in The Empire Strikes Back is instantly recognizable as Star Wars. Probably my favorite of all the pieces is Han Solo and the Princess. Okay, then we come to Return of the Jedi. Yet again, every piece is iconic. Whether it's the Ewok theme, March of the... Actually, I believe it's called Parade of the Ewoks. You know, a nice piece. I really like it. It's very jaunty. Jabba the Hutt's theme is brilliant because with the tuba, it is able to create the sense of the slug-like creature that is Jabba the Hutt. Music, a musical theme that conjures up an image that is so fitting to the character the music represents. You have Luke and Leia's theme, which I think is one of the most beautiful themes. If not the most beautiful theme that John Williams ever wrote. Just in terms of being so beautiful to listen to. It's not as well known as I think it should be. But I think once you hear it, you'll go, oh yeah, I know that. It may not be as recognizable in terms of what is this the theme of, as some of the other themes in Star Wars. But nonetheless, it is beautiful. And then, of course, you have the Emperor's theme, which is brilliant. Which, just conveys all the evil and treachery of Palpatine. Who's the real villain of Star Wars. Darth Vader might be the most iconic villain, but the most evil is Emperor Palpatine. The Rebel theme is also really cool. Brilliant. So, yet again, every piece is brilliant and recognizable as Star Wars. My favorite is probably the Luke and Leia theme. The runner-up would be Parade of the Ewoks. And, if I may be so bold, the song that played in the dance sequence in Jabba's palace, the song that played originally, Lapti Nek, in the original cut of the film, is wonderful. The one that was inserted for the special edition, Jedi Rocks, is awful. I'm just going to say it. It is awful. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, then we come to the prequels. The Phantom Menace. Every piece of music in The Phantom Menace is almost as recognizable as the music from the original trilogy. The Duel of the Fates has become just as iconic as any piece of Star Wars music. Which I believe it's probably my favorite piece from The Phantom Menace. And The Phantom Menace, in my mind, is so full of good music. Whether it's Duel of the Fates or Anakin's theme. Anakin's theme, by the way, if you listen to it, try to spot the reference to the Imperial March. There is one in there. Jar Jar's introduction, which is a piece I really like. Yet again, it creates an image. It creates the image of a swampy, damp, slightly jaunty atmosphere. Well, that describes Jar Jar to a T. It conjures up a mental image that is associated with Jar Jar. Yet again, more proof that John Williams is the master. And then, of course, the droid invasion, Qui-Gon's funeral music, the music during the pod race, the flag parade at the beginning of the pod race. It just goes on and on and on of great pieces of music. The arrival at Coruscant, my goodness. So my favorite would be Duel of the Fates. But I think the runner-up would be Jar Jar's introduction. And I'm sure that there's some pieces I'm missing, but they're all brilliant. Also, it's a brief moment, but when Jar Jar, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon swim to the Gungan City, the music playing in that segment with the choir is so brilliant. Okay, now we go into Attack of the Clones, which features arguably my favorite piece of Star Wars music, and that is Across the Stars, the love theme for Anakin and Padme. Now, I have made no secret that this is probably my least favorite Star Wars movie, but it's probably my most favorite score, if you can wrap your head around that irony. Even though the scenes between Anakin and Padme are lacking chemistry, at least for me, because of the performances being so flat, the acting I think is really flat, but the music is beautiful, and haunting, and passionate, yeah, and melancholy to a certain degree, tragic in a way. So we get that. The piece that I like to call the March of the Confederacy, I don't know if that's actually what it's called. I think it's called The Arena. Is basically the theme of the Separatists. I love a piece. There's a piece called Anakin and Padme, and there's a piece called The Meadow Picnic. Sorry, Meadow Picnic, which I also find to be astonishingly beautiful. Very light, very. Those pieces are more light and more just create this beautiful imagery of meadows and waterfalls and the things that we see on screen. John Williams is a master at reflecting in the music what we're seeing on screen. I also do like the piece called Jango's Escape, which is when Jango Fett and Obi-Wan get into a bit of fisticuffs on Kamino. So, absolutely brilliant music. Some of my favorite. And then, of course, Revenge of the Sith. Now, I'm going to confess, this is probably the Star Wars score that I've listened to the least. But I still like it very much. Battle of the Heroes is great. Anakin's Dream, which has some beautiful violin music. The music, my favorite piece of music in Revenge of the Sith, oddly enough, is a very dark piece. When Anakin has reported to Mace Windu that Palpatine is the Sith Lord, Mace goes to confront Anakin. Or goes to confront Palpatine, I should say. Mace tells Anakin to wait in the Jedi Council chamber. Anakin goes and waits there. Padme, in their apartment, is looking out the window. And we cut back and forth between the two of them as a very haunting piece plays. Very low, very rumbly, very, dark. It's one of the great moments in the movie, I think. We see Anakin, he's crying. His eyes are all red because he is making, and without words, we are told he is making his decision. Is he going to join Palpatine? Or is he going to allow the Jedi Masters to destroy Palpatine? Because he knows what Palpatine can offer. Supposedly, the ability to save Padme's life. Or at least the pathway to finding that knowledge. We know, of course, what decision he makes. The piece is called Padme's Ruminations. It's a brilliant scene and brilliant music. Also, I do like a bit of the music when Palpatine is telling Anakin the story of Darth Plagueis. Okay, so that's probably my favorite piece, Padme's Ruminations. And of course, there's a lot of reprisal of pieces we already know. Now, there is one piece, if I may really quick go back to The Phantom Menace. There was one piece I overlooked. On the soundtrack, it does not actually have its own track. But it is a leitmotif or a theme music for Qui-Gon Jinn. If you go back and watch the scene when Qui-Gon is fighting Darth Maul on Tatooine, you will hear the piece that I'm referring to. Absolutely brilliant in my mind, and has stuck with me ever since the first time I saw The Phantom Menace in theater 21 years ago. Okay, so that's it for the prequels. I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, we'll discuss the sequel trilogy. See ya. Hello there, this is Brennan Marr, host of Page Turners They Were Not, a Star Wars podcast. And I'm here to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the best way to make a podcast. Why is that? Well, first off, it's free. Yes, you heard me right. Anchor is free. Anchor has all the tools you need to make a podcast from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you on various platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from your podcast. And get this, with no minimum listenership. That means you can make money even if no one listens to your podcast. That, of course, is not ideal, as Anchor will allow you to spread your podcast, bring in more viewers, and you can make more money because of it. Everything you need to make a podcast is in one place on Anchor. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you, and may the Force be with you. And we're back. Okay. The sequel trilogy is interesting because I don't think John Williams is done composing. But I think his age is getting him to the point where he's not going to be able to produce as much music as he used to. And so in my mind, the score to The Rise of Skywalker is kind of his last hurrah. But I'm just so glad he's been able to do the sequel trilogy. Okay, so let's go back to The Force Awakens with the score. The Force Awakens, of course, introduced some pretty iconic pieces. Rey's theme, Kylo Ren's theme, and the March of the Resistance. Yeah, some really, really iconic music that fits very well into Star Wars. Now, I will say, I love the scores to the sequel trilogy. Are they as iconic as the original trilogy, or as memorable as Phantom Menace? I don't think so, but I think they're really, really good on their own. Or should I say, really, really good additions to Star Wars and really great scores. Now, I do find it a bit ironic that John Williams was nominated for Best Original Score for all three sequel films, but not for the prequels. In my mind, The Phantom Menace and maybe Attack of the Clones might have deserved those nominations as well. As good as the scores to the sequel trilogy are, I do believe that John Williams' status as a legendary figure in film composing, the king of living film composers, and arguably one of the greatest of all time, gave him a bit of an edge to get nominated. But I believe he deserved those nominations. I just think he also deserved them for some of the prequels. Okay, Force Awakens. As I said, I mentioned some pretty well-known pieces now. And of course, a lot of reprise of famous pieces that we know of. The moment, get this, the moment I knew that The Force Awakens had got me, you know what I mean? Where I said basically, I had my Chewie we're home moment, was when we meet Rey. She comes out of the Star Destroyer wreckage, gets on her little toboggan, and slides down that sandy hill, and we hear the first notes of Rey's theme. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. On those bells, on those stand-up bells. That was the moment where I went, I'm in. The movie has got me in. They've done it. I remember that went through my head in the theater when I saw it. So, consequently, as you can imagine, Rey's theme is probably my favorite piece of music from the sequel trilogy. So that's for The Force Awakens. Brilliant musical stuff. Alright, The Last Jedi. Yet again, a reprisal of these themes. But the theme that I really like, in addition to, of course, hearing Rey's theme again, is a piece called Fun with Finn and Rose. Basically, Rose's theme. Which I love. I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful piece. Yet again, I love the music to the sequel trilogy, but there are not as many iconic pieces as maybe some of the previous entries. And that's why I'm being rather brief with some of these. There's a piece of music when Rey is following Luke around the island. In Octo, there's some great music in those moments. there's so much. The battle with the dreadnought at the beginning has some great music. So truly some marvelous stuff, but Rose's theme stands out to me the most. And then, of course, we come to The Rise of Skywalker to conclude our catalog. Yet again, more reprisals of great pieces. I absolutely love that when Luke in Force Ghost form lifts the X-Wing out of the oceans of Acto, it's Yoda's theme that plays, because Yoda did the same for Luke all those years ago. That's a great moment. But to me, the piece that takes the cake, the piece that makes this score a beautiful conclusion to Star Wars, or at least to the Star Wars Skywalker saga, for now, is a piece called The Rise of Skywalker, which is so, so beautiful. And so emotional. I gotta tell you, I wept very much at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. When all was said and done, I was so, so moved. I sat in the theater in stunned silence for a minute or two. I had to wipe my nose and my eyes because I was in tears. I was so moved, and I think part of it is that piece called The Rise of Skywalker. A beautiful piece, and in terms of the score, I think The Rise of Skywalker may have the best score of the sequels. And is brilliant in so many ways. But that Rise of Skywalker piece was so moving to me that it is by far my favorite piece of The Rise of Skywalker. Rey's theme is still my favorite of the sequels, but The Rise of Skywalker is a close second. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the scores of the Star Wars saga. Bravo. Congratulations to you, Maestro John Williams, for being able to complete the story. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Let me know what your favorite pieces are. My name is Brendan Moore. That noise you hear is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.